Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan basketball and football writer for The Freak, joined by my buddy, our producer, our editor, really our do-it-all man, Andrew Burkle. What's up, Andrew?
Oh, not too much, man. Just surviving these freezing cold temperatures. I mean, it seems, I don't know if it's been like this in Ann Arbor. I'm up in Lansing, but I feel like literally every time I look outside, there's at least some flickering of snow coming down. Like I can't remember any time like this where it's like literally every night you wake up, there's snow in the morning. Every time you're about to go to bed, there's snow. It's just like never ending, it seems like.
There has been some of that this morning. We woke up with snow in Ann Arbor, but it's just been ice and cold. I mean, yesterday it was, it feels like temperature is negative 18, but most of the listeners, I mean, they're all going through it with us. So we don't need to remind everybody about how miserable it is here.
I know.
It will just be so much nicer when we're out of it. Okay. And there's your patented open the podcast weather talk, although it's really relevant this time.
Yes.
But anyways, we're here today to talk hoops because hashtag college football season is officially over. Football season, really, very sadly, in Metro Detroit is over. The Lions, of course, crushed our dreams and our hopes and sucked out our souls and stole our spirit. It's not, I mean, they had a good season, but obviously it's a tough ending. Michigan season has long since been over. Obviously, Ohio State just won the national championship, so we don't need to belabor that. Although, Andrew, there is a podcast to be had in the coming weeks about just the state of Michigan and Ohio State right now. Because, I mean, these two, I mean, I don't know if it feels like they're trading haymakers. I mean, obviously, because it's natty, big recruit. But some of these arguments are so asinine and like you're arguing the exact opposite of what you would have been a year ago on both sides. It's kind of like a pillow fight. Like it's a really soft fight. Like, so it's somewhere between like an all-time heavyweight fight and like what my sister's like sleepovers used to look like when we were 8 years old. I don't know. It's one of those.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, as you were saying, I was thinking about the Alabama-Auburn 30 for 30 on ESPN. You know what I'm talking about? The one about Roll Tide and the
Harvey
tree killing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Harvey Updike. Yeah. Because it's just like they made that because Alabama and Auburn were, trading national championships there for a few years. And like, it just kind of happened. Ohio State, Michigan just traded championships. It's a crazy time. And next year it should be a huge game, right? I mean, unbelievable. We have a lot to look forward to at the football front.
It always is. Last time, quickly, Big Ten team won back-to-back national titles. Andrew, go.
It was in the 60s, right? Minnesota was one of them.
Well, Minnesota won them in the 30s. I think it was Michigan State when they won like 6 in the 50s and 60s. I saw this on Twitter. I think it was 65, 66.
That sounds right.
The last back-to-back year.
And that's around the time when they stopped claiming like completely bogus titles too. 60s, it was still going on a little bit, but in like 40s, Alabama would claim it going like 7-2. So
yeah. And also, I mean, that's when there was integration, right? So, I mean, it's real, like the sport really, really changed.
Sort of important.
So, kind of a big deal, kind of important. All right. But that's our football talk, unless we have a little time at the end to get to some early season rankings ahead of next year, but I don't know if we will. The meat and potatoes of this show is hoops. The point of that diatribe was football season is over. It is now time to officially turn towards basketball season for anybody who had not already. And the good news this year is Michigan actually has a very good hoops team to turn your attention to. 14-4 overall, 6-1 in the Big Ten. And you could argue they have their biggest game of the season coming up on Friday, 8 p.m. at Purdue, Mackey Arena, on Fox. It's just, I mean, we're almost there. We're right at that calendar tipping in February when it's just, I mean, where you start playing on CBS and afternoon weekend slots, right? And things really lock in. But this is that time. And there is no bigger test in the league than what Michigan has in front of it.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. And like you said, maybe by the time we get to late February, early March, there might be a bigger game that rolls around just because of, rivalries. Michigan State play a couple times late in the year, but going to Mackey at this point is the toughest test the Big Ten has to offer. And it's going to be that way for at least a couple of years. Even if Michigan State get this thing rolling here, I mean, Mackey has proven to be a tough place to win. And, it feels like if Michigan can go to Purdue and pick up that win, even though they're down by a game to Michigan State, since the last time we talked, Spartans went 2-0, Purdue, and the Actually, I think they went 2-0. Michigan State went 2-0 and Michigan went 1-1 since the last time we talked. But it still feels like if Michigan wins this game, it almost flips the Big Ten in their direction because it's such a huge notch in the belt.
That is the lens I'm looking at this game through. And also, if you can see me, sorry, a little under the weather, trying to mute the coughs when I have to. But the way I kind of view this game for Michigan, not that they can afford to, I love to look at games in a way that like, okay, the team can't look at it like this, but here's how I view it, right? It's very effective. So it's a house money game. It's a house money game. If you steal this and when you're playing the win-loss game, every coach, if they're being honest with themselves at the beginning of the season, does. You look at the schedule. What are the wins? What are the losses? Where can you steal? What's the path? This is an L. Any coach who, with some self-worth, writes this down initially as a loss. You're not saying to yourself you're going to lose this game going in, but this is a game you lose. This is the toughest game on the schedule. And you can say that the same about Breslin, especially for Michigan at Breslin. But having now been to both of these places, I would put Mackey even like a separate step ahead. Like it is 1, and then Breslin is 2. Maybe with Assembly Hall, with Indiana and Illinois at that level. But it was that crazy on a Tuesday for a mediocre Michigan team. And this was like one of the most bonkers gyms I've ever seen a couple years ago. I just can't imagine what it's going to be like. They know the Dusty May storyline. Like he's an Indiana guy coming back. And perfect segue. They just did something they almost never do at Mackey. They just gave one away to Ohio State. Yeah. Ohio State just stole one from Purdue. I mean, that's probably the first time this week that Michigan fans are going to be thanking Ohio State for anything they did.
Ever.
But I mean, a 73-70 win at Mackey. Ohio State down double digits at the half, 17-2 run out of the break, and then they go down 6 again, and they have another 15-0 response. So those 2 runs, 23-2 in the second half. They won by 3 points. I'm sorry, that'd be 32-2, not 23-2. 32-2, those 2 runs, and they won by 3 points. That's what it's like.
It's crazy. And that's how, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you said that Michigan basketball players can't think like that, but we can. I mean, that can't be good for Michigan, right? I mean, that Purdue is going to have that thing buttoned down now. They're not giving away anything, no inches. And not to say that they can't win, but they're not going to catch Purdue on a lack of focus night now. Let's just say that.
Ohio State just got them, right? I mean, that could have been a classic look-ahead spot. This is not a good Ohio State team. Like, it's a scrappy, bottom of the Big Ten. They can get you when they're hitting shots. Like, oh my God, his name is escaping me. Who just went off? Micah Parrish. I mean, he might have scored like 30 points. He was raining threes, right? And you can just have those microwave nights. So, okay.
Yep.
Ken Pom has this, Andrew. I don't think you've looked at it. What do you think Ken Pom has this game?
I looked at it. I don't want to cheat.
Oh, okay.
77.
Right.
I'm just going to say 77, 73.
Very good. That was really good and honest of you. I'm actually proud. So then we'll just share it for the people. 77-73 Purdue. Is that about what you would have had it at? It's hard to know when you look at it first. I think I would have said a little higher.
I was going to say maybe a little higher but that's why Ken Pom is great, right? They take the semantics and outside circumstances out of it, right? Like you and I are looking at it like, oh, Purdue, now they have 2 losses in the Big Ten. They really need to take care of this one if they want to stay in the race. They're coming off a bad loss to Ohio State. Like that factors into my prediction of it a little bit. And that's why, the human edge, it's like the one thing we got, right? Is being able to look at like semantic stuff like that. Cause these computer models are so good now, but I would say maybe like 77-71 would be kind of where I was thinking, maybe 6 instead of 4. But it's in the ballpark, and Michigan can absolutely win this game. I mean, especially with the offense they generate.
All right, here are the keys, as we have identified, just a few of them. I mean, I'm going to start it here, even though Dusty doesn't start it here. Recently, he did earlier. Key number 1 is protect the ball. Turnovers, right? It seems obvious. Michigan struggles with turnovers. You can always say that about every game. I think even more so at a place that really gets its energy from your mistakes, right? Like the threes, the dunks, the turnovers. That's what energizes this crowd. So you have to limit the turnovers as much as possible while still playing your free-flowing game. But most importantly, any turnover that happens, it needs to be a dead ball turnover. It's got to go out of bounds. It's got to result in a foul. It cannot result in a run out the other way. If Michigan loses the transition game by really any margin in this game, that's really not a good sign, right? Because you don't like the odds that you're going to be on the right free throw disparity side, right? And then you're going to have to outplay them in the half court. And to do that against the whistle on the gym, it's just you're putting too many things against yourself. So I would say right away, they got to keep it to like 12 would be about the most. If you're over 12 turnovers, I think Michigan's going to have a really hard time winning this game.
Yeah, and we've talked about how that with this pace that Michigan plays with, and when you have a 7-footer running your offense, you're going to have turnovers, right? But in this building, in this situation, you can't give them freebies. You can't give them the momentum swingers on a Friday night in Mackey Arena where the crowd is going to be looking to explode. You think it, and Purdue is you've talked about like why Mackey Arena is tough. It seems to be a very smart and like basketball educated crowd in that way, right? Like they can sense when it's Danny Wolf who gets picked off, they're going to notice that type of thing. And they're going to really, give an extra oomph to it and extra punch to it. So yeah, Michigan's got to take care of the ball. Season long trend, but in this one, it's a really big deal.
It's been cleaned up. It was better against Northwestern. With 11 turnovers in 45 minutes, that's well improved, but they shot 22 of 61, right? Like those nights are going to happen where the ball just doesn't go in the bucket. And if that happened, good night, right? You got to be making shots and then do these other things.
Yeah,
number two.
We forgot to mention it, but this is kind of a key. Ohio State shot 11 of 23, almost 50% from three, and Purdue shot 3 of 9. If Michigan comes in and does that, I really like their chances, but a lot of that is them finding the balance between creating wide open shots and the turnovers. And they haven't totally struck that balance yet. It seems like where they're real, but especially against good quality opponents, but it feels like they're getting closer, right?
It does. And if I'm Michigan's coaching staff, I'm watching whatever Ohio State did to limit Purdue to 9 3-point attempts. They like to take more than that, like twice as many
crazy.
as that. That's unbelievable that's all. And I had seen that's all they took. But yeah, you win the 3-pointers by 24 points. That will help. Number 2, Battle of the Bigs. And it's a good one. Obviously, Michigan, Area 51, Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf. But for Purdue, it's kind of a one-man show. It's really Trey Kaufman-Wren. And then they throw in sort of a mix of Camden Heide, Caleb First, and then a couple other people. Will Berg gets 8 center minutes a game, but that's about it. And largely what we wanted to focus on is Trey Kaufman-Wren, who has been on an absolute heater. And I think right now he's the first team all Big Ten caliber player right now. He's right in line with Danny and Vlad and those sorts of things. And Purdue had to have, right? People thought there was going to be a huge fall off when Edey left. And it's very different than having some 7'5", 7'6", however tall Zach Edey was, like beast down there. But Kaufman-Wren now provides a different element, and he can step out and shoot it. Shooting 43% on threes. He's averaging 18 and 6.5.
Yeah, he's kind of like the classic, and this is kind of true for Purdue's team, is like just a classic college basketball team, right? Like Kaufman-Wren is probably maybe a little undersized, has got the post game to him. They've got Caleb First, who's like the annoying big guy on the other team who just like, you don't want to go against him, but you love him when he's on your team. And then you got 2 white guys as your guards. It's just like, this is so prototypical college basketball, this Purdue team. And, we were talking a little bit the other day or earlier about how this Purdue team maybe is not as talented as last year's team. You got Mason Gillis going to Duke and like playing major minutes there. Zach Edey's in the NBA getting minutes there. Plus a lot of the other key guys on last year's team are still, on this year's team or on last year's team. So it's maybe not that same talent level, but they certainly have enough infrastructure to beat you, right? And that's why they ripped off 7-8 games in a row, because the talent level maybe not as quite as high as last year, but Kaufman-Wren is a heck of a college basketball player, and he'll work you for sure. And he might present some tough matchups for those double big men for Michigan.
You'd start with Wolf on him, I would imagine, because he has the length to really disturb him. And Danny's done a really nice job on fours.
Moves his feet well.
But Dusty said it. What you're talking about with Purdue, He said they have climbed the mountain. They have done what college basketball teams aspire to do, right? Like sure, they didn't win it, but they've risen to the top of the Big Ten year in and year out. They have created sustained success, sustained winning, tournament appearances, now deep runs, right? Things that were not happening at Purdue. And yet again, even this year, in a year, right? Like this is the year where things are like kind of started slow and aren't going all that well. Their losses are to Marquette, A&M, and Auburn, who are all tournament teams, right? And then a couple in the Big Ten where you can drop one. You drop one to a pesky Penn State team on the road, and then the one they want to have back against Ohio State. But like even when they're not last year's team that looked like it was going to run the table, you're right. They're still incredible. And Dusty May called Matt Painter one of the best coaches in the nation. And so
possible to argue at this point, right? I mean, the jokes were fun, and it was real for a while. I mean, you don't lose to a 16 seed, especially when they've had the issues they've had. But for whatever it is, right? If you saw with Jim Harbaugh at Michigan football, one day it was an issue, next day it's not. Sometimes the switch flips. So, and I think that he has to be considered among the top coaches in college basketball. That's inarguable at this point.
No doubt. He's, top 5, top 10 for sure. I'm not listing 9 coaches over Matt Painter.
Yeah.
All right. And here's what I don't know if you looked ahead at what I'll call key number 3. We should also talk about Fletcher Loyer. Of course, we can talk about Fletcher Loyer. That's not even who I meant. I meant Braden Smith. I was reading the name Fletcher Loyer. We should talk about Braden Smith first. He averages 15 points and 9 assists a game. He shoots 42% from the field, 85% from the stripe, 40% from long range. And this is on high volume, right? This is on 12 shots a game. So he's just efficient. He fills it up. He's the guy you're talking about, right? I'm who you were alluding to. Just the facilitator. He will, when his career is all said and done, he will be the NCAA's all-time leader in assists. There's no doubt about it, barring injury. He is just about to smoke. He's about to smoke by and lead the Big Ten. And I think the 2 leaders in the Big Ten are Cassius Winston and Mateen Cleaves. And he's about to.
And they're near the top of NCAA history too.
Of all time.
Yeah. They're not just Big Ten leaders. They're pretty close to all time for assists. So he's a heck of a player, tone setter. You've seen the value of this up the road in Michigan State this year, going from having and Trey Donaldson in Michigan to a slightly lesser degree, because I think the offense runs through him less than does Jeremy Fears at Michigan State, but getting that true point guard in there. And Smith is he makes the coach's life so much easier, right? He gets the ball moving. He knows, this guy probably needs a touch right now. He's efficient. He's a point guard that any college coach would dream of having, right?
Yeah, no, he is. 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Everything you want. Lastly, I guess that's sort of a third thought or whatever, or a third key to the game is who's the hero? Who's the hero? If Michigan is going to win this game, there's got to be somebody. Who is the game story being written about, right? Who did the thing to make it happen? And a lot of times lately, that's been Vlad. He had 36 in a win against UCLA, 31 in a win against Northwestern. We've obviously seen Danny Wolf. He had that game 22, 13, 7, and 6 against USC, like one of the first players in a couple decades to put up a line like that. He also really filled it up against Minnesota. It was a loss, but he really filled up the stat sheet then. I don't know if you're noticing a pattern. It's kind of been Wolf Golden. I think it's time for one of these guards to step up. Namari's got to go 5 of 6 on his shots and hit 4 threes. Roddy Gale has been struggling with his shot, like pretty mightily. He's shooting like 27% from long range. Maybe he hits a few and drops 18, 20. I don't know, but it's just so who do you think? Who's got to be the guy?
It's funny you said that, because I kind of was going to go along the same lines. I think in order for Michigan to win this game, we've talked about why Purdue is going to be ready. We've talked about why they're a tough out. They're going to need at least good to solid performances from Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden at the bar, right? That's going to get them to be in the game. And I think if they want to win, it's going to come down to maybe a big shot by Namari Burnett or Roddy Gale, or maybe even Trey Donaldson or one of the bench guys. I think that it's going to come down to one of those guys making maybe a mid-range jumper when Purdue is coming back, or a last couple minutes shot that maybe it's not the game winner, but it's like, oh my God, that shot really flipped the game. It seems like it's going to come down to one of those guys making a big shot when it really matters to me, because you're going to have Wolf and Golden be playing well, good, probably pretty good to even have a chance to win this game. Now, if Danny goes out and puts up, 30 and 10, or Golden does that again, where he's got like 30 points, he's hit 3 threes and has 12 rebounds, that might be all they need, right? But I think that's going to be Purdue's game plan. They're going to be like, all right, we got to take these guys away. They're not going to make it easy on them. So it's probably going to come down to one of I don't want to call them role players, but, other guys, not those two Area 51 big guys there.
Yeah, no, watchers have totally overthought it, and Michigan, they're like, oh, Edey's not here anymore. Like, let's just dump this thing down low. Let's just dominate with our size, right? Like, because Purdue, historically, would have been one of the teams that can really neutralize that size. They can to some extent. I don't know that anybody can really, really slow Michigan. So, all right, let's make a pick. I will throw it to... I don't know if it's... I'll throw it to you first, Andrew. Can Michigan get its win of the season in Mackey?
All the exterior circumstances point to no, but I'm going to say yes. I think this is a cleanup game for Michigan. They played, crap down their leg against Minnesota. That was a really bad loss. They almost lose to Northwestern, find a way to win. And then they got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to figure it out. 4 days to basically iron some things out, get back to what they were doing well. And I think that they come into Mackey and play really well and knock them off. And if not, obviously, if Purdue makes 12 threes, 15 threes or something like that, it all goes up in the rain, but like that's college basketball these days. If one team just drains a bunch of threes, then that's always a possibility. But I think Michigan matches up pretty well, and I'm actually going to predict them to win, maybe like 80 to 78, I'm going to say.
Wow. I did not see that coming. I can totally get behind that. And Michigan has 4 losses, all Power 4 teams, all away from their gym, all by 1 possession, right? So nobody's even shown that they can just separate themselves from Michigan. Michigan's been in every game, and a lot of times and in some of those losses, they've let teams back in it. This is just not a gym. You can allow teams to do that. And I just don't know if Michigan has fully learned how to put teams away yet. Northwestern doesn't have enough offensive firepower, and their point guard, who had cooked them for 20 points, fouled out with 9 minutes left. They were down 3 at home late, right? Like there's just, I feel in the last couple of weeks, they've taken a little bit of a step back on defense. I don't know what it is. I'm not quick enough to identify it. I'm going to try to talk to some people. That's just my take on it. I just think their defense is not quite where it was. And this is not a team that you can afford to do that against. So again, it's going to be in the final 4 minutes. It's going to be one of those 1-2 possession games. Hopefully it's not just free throw fest like Northwestern. Hopefully get some offensive execution, and it's just about who makes the plays, because both teams can do it. Michigan can absolutely win this game, but it's just, you've seen when they go to Trey Donaldson with some of these floaters late, a number of times to win it, and they haven't connected. They've had chances to win late in regulation and not won it. So I don't know that they've proven to be able to put a team away or to make the big shot when it counts. Danny had a huge shot against Minnesota, and then, Dawson Garcia half-courted them. Yeah. So I'm not saying they can't do it, and I'm not saying they're incapable, but I can't pick it. I can't pick it.
Yeah, and that's totally fair, because that's been the knock on this team, right? Like in a perfect world, they could still be freaking undefeated. Honestly, like all their losses have been games they easily could have won. And, obviously basketball is a game of sample size, right? And some things are going to go against you and some things are going to go for you over the course of time. But at the same time, it does feel like Michigan has struggled to stick that dagger in its opponent and really, lock up the win. So yeah, I just think this is a really good opportunity for them to do it, though, is kind of where I'm going for it.
There's probably only 2 games I would pick Michigan to lose with this much rest just right now in the league. That'd be at Purdue, at MSU. And even that second one, I'd probably pick Michigan State just the way they're playing right now on the road. But again, like Illinois too, actually. that'd be really tough. But they don't have to go there this year. So that's neither here nor there. All right. I will head down to Mackey Arena. We're going to get this pubbed today, I believe, Thursday, as we're recording. So want to give you enough time to digest and listen. I'll be headed down to Mackey Arena tomorrow. Again, 8 p.m. tip. Number 12, Purdue, hosting number 20, Michigan. It's a resume test, right? See where you are. It's time to see where they are. That's what Dusty May said, and that's what they'll see come Friday. So thanks for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thanks to our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery-Nichols, our sports editor, Bill Bradley, and our audio engineer, Robin Chan. For Andrew, I'm Tony. This is Hail Yes.